Here we are, folks. Another Liquibase Community Meetup. This one is for May 2020. And so we're going to kick it off with a poll.
Oh, Robert went mute.
When I hit space, it mutes. That's what it is. So I got to get on PowerPoint and then do bullseye. How long have you been using Liquibase? We'd like to ask this every time, just so we can get an idea of who's on the, what level of Liquibase expertise is in our audience today. That just helps us kind of, triangulate, kind of figure out where we need to be, and stuff we talk about. So do we talk about just getting started, or do we talk about, kind of lower level stuff? And
yeah. Usually a pretty interesting mix.
Here we go. So it's, we've got a lot of folks, less than 6 months, handful. I don't use it. Nathan, is that you juicing it? The over 3 years? Is that you and me?
Nope, sorry.
I think Nathan's right at 3 years.
Yeah, 3+. So it looks like we've got a really even distribution. We got a handful of folks that have never used it. And so for those folks, welcome. And we'll be talking about all sorts of things dealing with Liquibase today. And then certainly, of course, folks, at the end, we've got open questions and answers. So any kind of questions you have, you've been using it for a long time, haven't gotten started, you can go to the chat window or Q&A, or I forget where it is in this, and go to webinar, but ask questions, please. And so we'll get to those at the end. So we're going to go, kind of talk about who's here. We're going to talk about product roadmap. We're going to do community corner and then the question and answer. So you all ready to get started? Yay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is who we are. We've got Nathan. Say hi, Nathan.
Oh.
Nathan is benevolent dictator for life. That's my title for him. So the project founder, head cheese when it comes to Liquibase, that is Nathan. Kevin, our VP of Engineering Community. Say hi, Kevin.
Yo, Kevin's on mute.
This is where I can also test to see if we're off mute.
Thanks, Robert.
Hello.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kevin. Nice to see you all.
Good to see you. Ronak, say hello.
Hello, wonderful people.
He's our development community manager. And then we have Caroline.
Hello.
And Caroline is our user community manager. I'm Robert. And Mario, you are here as well as our product manager for Liquibase. Say hello, please.
How's it going, people?
Now, Mario, you got some very special stuff teed up, don't you?
I do. We have some exciting things to talk about.
So how are we going to do this? Am I going to drive the slides and then we're going to turn to you for the video, or do you want to take over now? How do you want to do it? You want me to drive the slides?
Yeah, it's only 2 slides and then turn it over to me for the video.
Deal.
All right.
Okay.
So I'm just going to jump right into a product update. So this is the section where we talk about upcoming things. Let me give a little bit of context first. So there's a thing called the diff command. If you're not familiar with that in Liquibase, you will be. It's pretty handy because it compares 2 databases. If you're a little bit familiar, it is the key URL and the other key reference URL, and it finds the differences between these 2. So it lists things as missing, which means that there's an object that's not in your target database, things that's unexpected, it's in one but not the other, or changed, it's in both, but it's slightly different. This is really, really handy for understanding the databases as they evolve. We often use the phrase as they drift, which has the implication that they have changed outside the scope of Liquibase. So when you use Liquibase to do all your migrations, you have a record of everything, so they don't tend to drift. But if you have multiple teams working on products, then they can drift a bit. So if you go to the next screen,
you got a bunch of hands in there. It gets a little grubby. So, hey, before I get to the next screen, I just want to make sure I've got this straight. All right, so we've got target database. All right, so this is the thing I want is behind, so to speak. So if I was looking at a pipeline, this would be maybe QA, my test environment, and source would be dev. I have things in dev, in source, and I want to move them over to target, right?
Yeah, you could do it in, or think of it in a couple of ways. Target is the database that Liquibase is acting on. So if you were to do an update or generate change log, so that's the one it's actually acting on. The reference URL could be another database in your pipeline, but it could also be just a model database that is the sort of golden standard of where databases should be. So in a multi-tenant scenario, and I'll talk about a little bit of this in the video, so I won't go too in depth with it right now, but you might have a model of what all the tenants are supposed to look like, but for various reasons, the tenant may get some out of band action. A hot fix comes in, some dev is working on something, they didn't go through Liquibase for that, and this is a way to help detect that.
Okay.
Because if you went through Liquibase, it would just be in your change log.
All right, cool. And you want me to go to the next slide, right?
Next slide, please.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, there you go. So in Liquibase 3.9.0, which is coming out, I think, as soon as this webinar is over and Nathan can do the final release.
Yay!
We've extended the diff
command
command.
on the GitHub page right now. It's not even made it to our website, but it is actually available on the GitHub releases page.
Out and out.
That's right. So, but you're hearing about it first. So this is it first. And I'll just go through this very quick because this is what the video talks about. But Liquibase 3.9 extends the diff command with some JSON output, which is very handy for, as it says, detecting drift at scale. You can see the two commands, two versions of the command right there. It's straightforward -- format equals JSON. So if you don't mind, Robert, hand it over to me and I will show the video.
You got it. I am going here and saying make presenter. Yes.
Okay, we'll switch to the video. Can you see my video?
I sure can. Looks great.
All right, here it starts. Hey, my name is Mario. I'm a product manager here at Liquibase, and I'm here to tell you about Liquibase 3.9, which is an exciting new feature of diff with formatted JSON output. Why is this exciting? Well, JSON is always exciting, but having a machine readable structured JSON object makes it very easy to detect the differences between two databases in an automated and therefore scalable way. When you have a multi-tenant scenario, for example, you might have dozens or hundreds of databases, which compared to a model database can drift apart. Drift happens for all sorts of reasons, sort of beyond the scope of this discussion, but it is important to be able to track that at scale. And this is what this new capability enables. Okay, let's take a look at the command in and of itself real quick. So Liquibase diff is a standard command you probably know and love, to which we have added -- format equals JSON, which is the new pro capability. By default, it goes to standard out, so you can pipe it directly into whatever existing workflow or tool or system you use to process it, or you can create a new one. You can also choose to output a file directly. You can automate this and script it very easily, which is the demo I will show you in a moment. Okay, let's run through a quick scripting and automation example. So I set up a little Python app that calls Liquibase diff command and automates a bunch of drift reports. So this will be in a GitHub. I'll show that at the end. You can find the repo. So there's a little text file, and it just lists a bunch of databases, which I happen to have set up in old-fashioned PHP admin MySQL and made some databases and shifted them around slightly so they have some drift to them. And it creates a config file, a ref database and the target database, and generates a bunch of commands. And it runs through those commands and produces an output as a JSON file. So I have a bunch of JSON out files here in a timestamp directory. And if we look at those, you can see the differences. This one is the difference between the model DB3 and model DB01. You can see it is different from this one over here, which is a lot more items missing because they have a whole extra table. And in this way, I could run this script automatically. I could run it nightly. I could run it on certain migration trigger events. and parse these JSON files and have an automated search protection among hundreds and hundreds of databases. Okay, one last thing real quick. Just want to show you how simple it was to set up. This is a Python, it's a config file that sets up with my directory name, where I look for my databases. So you can build this text file in any number of ways. You can type it in automatically. It looks to another file which processes all these things and strings them together there, those commands and run them. It's pretty straightforward. With a little bit of effort, you could certainly make it fit your own personal workflow needs. If you feel like using this as a base, feel free. It's over at a repo at GitHub, and it'll help someone out. Okay, I hope you found this useful. It's pretty easy to script Liquibase and to automate how the diff command with the formatted output works between multiple databases. For example, we only use a few, but you can easily scale this up. If you found this valuable, you want to look at Liquibase some more, you can find it at liquibase.com, and as well as GitHub and Maven and other places. Thanks for watching.
Cool. So
All right.
what I got from this is that instead of just the text output that we were doing previously, finding the missing objects unexpected or changed, we're now putting it in a JSON format so you could use it for something else. If you wanted to do it in a format that made it pretty, you had some kind of tool that could look at JSON output and do something with it. That's what this is for.
That is correct. So you can and automate this and script it very easily. You could create a script that finds all the databases, let's say, that your tenants represent, and build a list of those and work through those. You could do it through, historically, so you could collect those files and do it asynchronously. You could do it on demand, like so when you trigger something. There's a lot of ways for that to work.
Cool. Can you make me presenter? Do you mind?
Yeah, I was just looking real quick for where my little window is to.
It's
It
gone.
should have gone away.
You got to dread the rest of the day.
There it is. There it is. All right.
Cool. All right. So we already did the video. I'm very excited. So, hey, I think, thanks, Mauro. I do appreciate it. That's really cool. So Kevin, you're up next, bud.
All right, thank you, Robert. I just wanted to give everybody a quick update on the Liquibase 4 beta. We launched the beta 1 about 3.5 weeks ago. And just as a reminder, we had a few features that were added. Log file, class loader, and file accessor improvements were made. And there are over 200 bug fixes from both the community and from Datical. Just to give everybody a quick update on what's happened. So the community has done a lot of work. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, everyone, for all the assistance. There were 9 doc issues reported, 28 enhancements and bugs reported, and 9 code contributions. So really, really, really good. I want to just thank everybody for your efforts there. We're currently working on Liquibase 4.0 Beta 2. We're going to launch that next. The big change there is that all the extensions have been updated to support Liquibase 4.0. And Nathan's actually in the process of writing documentation on how to update your custom extension to work with 4.0. So if you have an extension that you've written that's not it's not hosted on the Liquibase site, you might need to make a couple of changes. There's going to be a compatibility layer in there, but if you do need to make changes, there's going to be documentation on how to do that. I think it's fairly minor, but we'll at least have instructions on how to get that done. And we're doing our best to merge all the community pull requests from the master branch into this beta 2. We probably won't get all of them, but we're going to get as many as we can. If we have any left over, we'll do a beta 3 after beta 2. But we wanted to get as much in there as we could so that when you guys test, you're having the chance to see all the good changes that have been coming in that Ronak's been working with the community on and bringing into development. Just a quick note, if you want to sign up for announcements for Liquibase 4.0 Beta 2 or any other community announcements, just go to the bottom of the liquibase.org page and there's a sign up box there. Just type your email address and we'll keep you in the loop. Thank you, Robert.
All right, cool. Well, thanks, man. Yeah, who doesn't have an extension hosted in our Liquibase GitHub repo?
They really should.
Why are they playing life on hard mode? Why are they doing that?
People have some on their own because they'll do custom internal stuff that is specific to them. Their own change set, or you can create your own change types. You can do a lot of that sort of stuff that makes Liquibase easier for you to use as well too.
Oh, so like the really weird stuff. If they're
That's
really,
right.
Okay, I understand. Okay, fair enough.
Robert, if there are people that have their own custom extensions, they're maybe generally useful for everybody, is there something they should be doing?
If only there was a path to that. We should work on that. In fact, thanks for the tee up. I appreciate it. So we're going to have Ronak, we're going to have Caroline, and then we're going to be talking about our friends at SAP in a little bit. And that's exactly what they did. So Ronak, let me get to your slide. Here we go.
Okay. All right. So before I talk about Standemir here, I just kind of wanted to give a little background. Thanks for the tee up to Kevin about how to contribute. And R2 about how some of the more exotic, I believe, weird contributions can happen. I think that's a perfect segue here. And I'm hoping I have folks that are interested in extending and contributing to the Liquibase code base. I am the developer evangelist or developer community manager, and my world consists of pull requests right now. Kevin mentioned beta 2. I have a renewed focus on getting all PRs that are targeted to master into that beta 2 release. And I wanted to spotlight, I started about a month looking through these PRs, and I wanted to highlight a couple of people. I mean, there are tons of folks I could highlight, but for time, these two gentlemen I had the pleasure of working with. So let's talk about Standemir here first. Standemir is a software developer based in Bulgaria. A lot of our submitters are international, and he has experience in Java and XML. And so the problem that Standemir was working on that led him to Liquibase was he started on a project about 7 months ago, and the schema was changed from just having one backend to another backend, and he didn't want to duplicate, the SQL, and so he found the XML abstraction layer just awesome and just what they needed there. But for that, and actually in his words, I'll say Liquibase. I'll just quote him. Liquibase is a nice change abstraction. Not just raw SQL, unlike Flyaway. Those are his words, not mine. We need to support 2 different database backends for the same application, Apache Derby and MySQL. Also, the rollback feature is available in the community edition of Liquibase versus a paid-for feature of Flyaway. Rollback is not used in production, but as Stania mentioned, it's useful and handy in the lower environments. So, what makes Standemir, I want to know what makes folks contribute. And again, in his own words, he said, I believe I need to present my issues with the product given a change if I expect to see improvements on it. So I love his attitude. He's just like, I saw something that needs to change. The quickest way is for me to contribute. So if anybody's listening in, we have documentation on how to submit your first PR. We have guidance on unit tests, and I promise we can walk you through it. We'll hold your hands. I'm a big hand holder. All right, and again, if there's anything you want to fix, extend, or modify in Liquibase, just send me a note, ronak@liquibase.org, and I'd be happy to point you to those documents.
Or blow you up on Twitter, low right-hand corner, folks.
That's right. That's right. Robert, next slide, please. Okay, and here is another user that these guys respectively each submitted 3 and 4 pull requests in the last 2 months. Michael here goes by the tag of Wallaby 1999, and he's a freelance developer based in Germany. And let's see, the problem he was trying to solve that led him to Liquibase is the team decided to offer their system as a SaaS solution with an Oracle backend DB. And they had already started writing in their existing product was written in Firebird DB. So again, here the solution is they were looking for open source tools to improve the way they did DB maintenance, and the XML change sets offered a great way to unify DB handling for the different DB types while offering, these are his words, offering enough flexibility in case of special handling for specific database needs. Developers were also able to get their DBs up to date, their personal dev DBs up to date easier. That's pretty cool. And so, I asked Michael, why does he participate? And he says, anytime Michael runs across a refactoring for something he cares about, which is Firebird, that does not work and he wants to use, he just looks in the code and tries to submit a solution to it. He feels he is not in any way an expert in the Liquibase code base, and he's just making specific fixes to Firebird DBMS. So, that's also another profile. Some of these fixes are very specific to a user's needs, but are much appreciated nonetheless.
Well, that's where it starts. I mean, that's Eric Raymond said in Cathedral and the Bazaar, it all starts with a itch that a developer has to scratch.
I couldn't have said it better. And furthermore, on the why they're contributing, and I can't stress how grateful we are for their contribution. I would like to turn it over to Caroline because she's got a great spotlight and a great reason for why they contribute. So I'll turn it over to Caroline.
Cool.
Oh, yeah. So I've been working on the team for the last couple months. And one of the big things that we took a look at when we first kind of started jumping into the community channels was, where are our community members primarily living, right? Where are they hanging out? And obviously one of the big ones was Stack Overflow. So Stack Overflow is such a great resource for people that are looking to get their questions answered. But really we wanted to take a deeper dive into who's answering questions on our behalf for Liquibase, right? Who's going in, taking a look at questions that people have about Liquibase, and they are using their expertise on Liquibase to answer them. Turns out there's a handful of them out there, and there's people that are doing it regularly, and that's where Artem here comes into play. So to introduce Artem, he actually comes from Moscow, Russia, and he is a senior Java developer over at Wiley Publishing. So if you've ever studied for a GMAT, the official GMAT book comes from Wiley Publishing. Maybe not great memory studying for that thing, but just to connect the dots there for you a little bit. So we had such a great conversation with him. I'm so glad that we were able to connect with him face to face, even though obviously it was virtual over Zoom. But he actually began using Liquibase at a previous employer back in 2014. So the dev team there was already using Liquibase at the time. And so he got to dip his toes into it and get a better understanding of how it worked with some of their change sets. So he actually left the previous employer and he did eventually go to Wiley Publishing, where he actually introduced Liquibase to his dev team there. So they actually have integrated Liquibase into Spring Boot, and they use Amazon for their database environments. They specifically use Liquibase for their Wiley Plus, which is an online learning platform. Obviously super useful given the current climate with COVID-19. So anyway, at the beginning of his career, Artem obviously was using Stack Overflow to go in and have a lot of his questions answered. It served its purpose in that way for him. But we wanted to know more about, okay, so what made you decide to start going in and answering questions for people on behalf of Liquibase? He said that about 2 or 3 years ago is when he started kind of finally getting that itch to do that. And ultimately, the reason was because he felt, hey, I've taken and now I'm giving back. And that's what's so beautiful about that relationship and what's really making our community thrive. It's that motivation to contribute back to the community. Of course, the other thing he mentioned too was the gamification of Stack Overflow. You can't deny that. So his goal is actually to be the 6th person ever to earn a bronze badge for Liquibase. So I know. I was like,
How
right,
close?
I can help out with that.
Get it, man. Get after it.
But this is why, this is why we do what we're doing right now. This is why our community is thriving. Once they take from the community, they want to give back. And it's people like Artem that we would love to learn more about and kind of their motivations. It's really what's contributing to the overall engine that we're trying to build here. So kind of, my goal and what our community team's goal is really to build out a community program. We've been doing some initial reach out to people, and I tell them, hey, it's Caroline. I'm from the Liquibase community team, and they say there's a Liquibase community team. I'm like, yes, we do exist, and we're out here, and we're trying to learn more about the ways that people are contributing to Liquibase. We really want to encourage people to contribute, and we want to recognize those that are active. So with that said, if you feel that, hey, I'm on StackOverflow, I'm answering people's questions, or I'm out there making YouTube videos, or I have content that I want to share, we want to learn about it. We want to meet you. I want to meet you. Let's hop on a Zoom, right? Also, at the bottom there, you can see my Twitter handle. Please feel free to reach out to me, DM me, it's open. But yeah, it's exciting. It's a really exciting time to be part of the Liquibase community team because we're really starting to take off and grow in more of our engagement of our users.
Takes a village to release an open source project.
It does. It really does. And they've done a great job all these years.
To maintain it.
It's so nice to have more people helping.
Oh yeah, always nice. More hands make for easier work.
Exactly.
Thanks, Caroline. Really appreciate that. And so the one I wanted to chat about is Jonathan. So this one is more on the extension side. So Jonathan works for SAP, and you can check him out on a lot of the blogs that he's written. That's on the SAP website. But they had a new release of HANA. And, previously Liquibase had supported SAP HANA, but they needed to update it. And what they did was they just forked it and updated it into the SAP GitHub repository. Well, we certainly wanted to release that as part of Liquibase. And to make that happen, they transferred that repository from the SAP GitHub organization to Liquibase. So if you go to, what was it, Nathan? It was github.com/SAP/HANA-Liquibase. And
Yep.
now it's, if you go to that, it reroutes you to Liquibase/Liquibase-HANA, because we like to preface it to match the other ones. And so, we brought that over. They transferred it over to us. And then the dude immediately turned around and he did a PR on it to support HANA Cloud. And I said, oh, wow, this looks really cool. I want to check it out. And I sent him an email today. And I was like, hey, I can't find this. He said, yeah, it's not out. We just did it ahead of time. And so, we're very appreciative of this. I know that there's a lot of HANA users that are using Liquibase. And so we're going to have this released as part of the Liquibase 4.0 release. But we very much appreciate it. Once we have access to HANA Cloud, we're not only going to be testing it in Travis with a Docker container running HANA, and Jonathan created all these wonderful integration tests. Check out the Travis YAML if you want to see how it works. But he also has this stuff working in HANA Cloud. So once that gets released, we're going to have that as part of our automated testing efforts. So if you have an extension, if you think it's of use, if it works for you, guess what, folks? It's going to work for a lot of other people. So reach out to us and we'll try to find the right place for it and bring that into our automation. And look, it's even if you don't think it's valuable, let me tell you, if you found a reason to write that code, somebody else is going to find value in it. So let us know. We'd love to chat. Okay, so I think, are we done on Community Corner? Is it time for another poll? Are you guys good?
Can I throw in one thing?
Absolutely.
Sure. I think it is worth mentioning that there is a new development of this public build server. So when you do your contribution, it will actually build it for you and runs tests. And that's a beautiful way to know how far along it is in the process to being accepted officially. This is
Real,
newish in the last month. I don't know, it's all a blur nowadays. Time is meaningless. But recently this has come about, and it saves so many people so much time. And it's Nathan and Jake Newton get big ups for that. I don't know if you want to explain how it works, but it's very awesome to be able to have your code tested automatically.
yeah, when you do a PR on one of these, it is actually going to build in Travis CI. It's going to build that branch. And it's going to make sure that any integration tests, any testing that's there, it's going to run those as well. Did you want to add anything to that, Nathan?
No, that's pretty good.
Okay, so just do a PR and it's going to automatically check. And if it's red, it's not getting accepted. So fix it. Are you guys good? Are we ready for the poll?
Yeah.
So poll time, what would make it easier to use Liquibase? Easier to get, more extensions, support more databases, other. Unfortunately, it's not free form. So if you have an other, then go ahead and put it in the chat window.
Yeah, it would be
And
super
that is
interesting.
next. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, it would be super interesting to hear someone's other. There will be a survey out soon that sort of extends on this, but yeah, always interested in what people describe as making it easier to use Liquibase.
All right, and here we go. It looks like support for more databases. So again, if you've answered that one, we would love to hear what databases you would like support for. Drop it into chat. Especially if it's like, oh, I don't know, Mongo, Cassandra, Snowflake.
MySQL, MariaDB.
But yeah, that's a cool thing. We've already we've got what are we considering them, Nathan? Alpha, beta on the extensions for Snowflake, Cassandra, and Mongo.
Those are probably still kind of closer to the alpha side.
Okay.
But yeah, I would love to get better support in there.
Yeah, let us know. Oh, look, got Mongo and Kafka. How would Kafka work? How would that be, just tie into for streaming? Maybe I'm getting this wrong. Existing Gradle plug is not easy to configure. Well, guys, this is a good time to chat about this stuff. And so
integration would be it would be another good question on there. What integrations do people use? I know from our surveying, it's mostly CLI and Maven, and then Spring Boot. Yeah, Gradle, Ant. What else is there? Someone's using something other than that, throw it in the chat.
Yeah, we currently have Spring integration and servlet integration as well, and yeah, the Gradle one. I think that's all the ones we have right now, but yeah, definitely also, like with the more databases, let us know, from the, NPM, Yum, Homebrew, all those sort of things. What of those would be most useful for you too? What would make it easier for you to get Liquibase up and going in your environment?
Yeah, absolutely. Put it in chat. Can we go ahead and close the poll because we're moving into question for the team time. And so, we had a couple that came in. I'm going to scroll up here. Two that Nathan has already volunteered to nail. You want to handle, so I'm going to go ahead and read it. I had a question about Liquibase for SQL Server. The generate change log does not include the schema name. Was this fixed in a recent release? It's defaulting to DBO, whereas I have a custom schema name. Nathan, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so the way that it should work is, if by default it doesn't include the schema name, because a lot of times people, they will be deploying to one schema in one database and a different schema name and maybe a different database. And so, by default, we just don't include the schema names. There is a include schemas attribute that you can use when you're running the CLI or running Maven, which will make it so that it does include those schema names. If you're not seeing that on SQL Server, definitely let us know, because that's the behavior that It should be, and that I remember seeing. But yeah, if you are finding a problem with that, let us know.
Oh yeah, it shouldn't be that way, right?
Yep, it should be that way, but you do need that flag for it to
Yes.
include the schemas.
And a good place is GitHub issues. GitHub.org/Liquibase, and then go to issues and submit it there.
Yep, that'd be a great place.
But remember, include schemas flag. Check it out. The next one, and this came from our Discord channel. We have been relying on Hibernate to generate schema changes whenever entities would be updated. Came across a few Stack Overflow comments that there's supposedly a way to have Liquibase generate a change set based on changes to Hibernate entities, but I haven't found anything specific. My current understanding is how I do this is fire up a new schema in H2DB, then run a Liquibase diff against it. Is that a good strategy, Nathan?
This one does a good job of touching on both the extensions and also our new diff command, or the diff command as well too. So we do have a extension out there called Liquibase-Hibernate. You can find it on out on GitHub under GitHub/Liquibase/Liquibase-Hibernate. But what that will let you do is it's able to have Liquibase kind of look at your existing Hibernate structure, your objects, and sort of see it as a database structure. So you can do all the normal kind of Liquibase comparison stuff between your target database and that Hibernate configuration as sort of a reference. So you can use the diff command and be able to see, oh, my Hibernate setup has these extra 3 columns in there that my database doesn't have. It's going to report on that in the text, or you can use the new JSON format to get it in kind of more that programmatically accessible way. You can also use the diff changelog and generate changelog commands to create change logs, to sort of fix up those differences between what's in your Hibernate objects and what's in your actual database. So the flow people usually end up kind of going through is you have your existing database that you're using for development, and you have your existing Hibernate classes. Say you add a new attribute on one of your Hibernate objects, just add that in the Java code, and then you'll run the Liquibase diff changelog command, which will see that there's that new attribute and know kind of how that column needs to go, and so it'll add a new add column change set onto the end of your changelog file. Then what you want to do is you always want to kind of look to see what got generated, because 90% of the time it's right, but 10% of the time it's not, and you want to make sure that it's doing what you're expecting it to. So make sure it's what you want, and then you can just run your Liquibase update command then with that new change set against your development database, and then now your development database matches what your Hibernate code does. So you can run your test, do what you need, and it's going to work, and you're capturing those new change sets as you're going along in development, making sure that your Hibernate and your database are in sync with each other.
Cool.
And it is a safer route to go as well too than the built-in Hibernate HBM to DDL stuff. So Hibernate has some existing functionality to say automatically migrate your database, but because it's doing it automatically for you, it's going to miss those 10% of the time where it's not quite right, and it might accidentally drop a table or something like that, which is why Hibernate docs say don't use this for production. And since you don't want to use it for production, you don't want production to be different, that's where you want to kind of get it into Liquibase right away in development, and it's going to flow all the way through development, or through all the way through to production.
Cool. Thank you, Nathan. And so if for the folks that aren't sharing screens, not me, there's a really good point, Mario, that you put in the chat about adding links. So if somebody could put in the chat for everyone, like, where to put GitHub issues, and then that other stuff, that'd be cool. For the folks that are still on, I do have this question about Kafka. I would like to get into that a little bit. So if you can help me understand how you would see Liquibase work with Kafka, I'd really like to know that. we do have, for our friends that asked Mongo, we would like some feedback on, there we go, on the MongoDB extension. So this was, again, another pull request. Some folks, put this out on GitHub, told us about it, got some really cool integration tests with it as well. So we actually forked that into the Liquibase repository, and they're doing PRs there now. There was a new MongoDB JDBC driver update that we needed to fix. What was it, GUIDs, I think? And they fixed that in the integration test. That was really cool. So check that out. You're gonna have to build it yourself. It's a kit, Maven package after you do git clone. But go ahead and check it out. It generates data, so it'll create JSON docs, and it will also keep track of any commands that you run against Mongo. So this is for keeping track of your collections. If you wanted to use this and to keep the environment up to date with all the collections you're creating or uncreating. We also got some feedback that support for SDKs in other languages would be great. So we would love to hear which languages are valuable. And then another one is we got some feedback that the existing Gradle plugin is not easy to configure. So Maria, let's put that on the list to look into, make that a little bit easier.
Sure.
Is there anything that from the team that you guys would like to discuss? Is there questions that you might have heard this week or in the past 4 weeks since we did the last one that we answered and you'd like to share with the audience?
Sure. I've got two. One about Diff particularly. This came up as we were testing and finding people to beta the Diff JSON tool. And it's a question that might actually appeal to people in the crowd right now. When do you use Diff? Why wouldn't I use Diff and Diff changelog all the time? And the close variation of that is, can I just use my regular IDE or my regular view of the database, make my maneuvers on it the way I would, and then just run a Diff changelog and keep doing that as migrations, rather than writing migrations in XML or SQL or JSON or whatever. And it is the best practice to, and Nathan, I'll ask you to jump in here in a moment. I know you'll have strong feelings. I say, and I think it is the best practice to keep things in one zone. So if you have your team working in Liquibase, then have your team work in Liquibase. That's the best answer. But it's also true that teams, especially in bigger environments, will be working in parallel, and they will not all be working in Liquibase. And one of these examples is where it came up that they just decided a team would work sort of out of the box of Liquibase, a team would work in, and then this team would run diff changelogs back against the kind of the references. It does not strike me as the best of all possible worlds, but it is a world that people exist in. Nathan, what are your feelings about when to use diff and diff changelog?
Yeah, I think that's kind of mirrors it a lot, where my personal preference and what I kind of feel like, is kind of the safest route is to kind of start with, adding the change sets yourself. Because really the goal is you want the exact same logic to be ran, from the developer's machine, through QA, through, staging all the way to production. And, the more times you're running these migrations, the less surprises you have. And so, the easiest way to kind of meet that is to have, the developer kind of writes the change set and then applies it to their local database, and if it works out, great, it's going to go all the way through production. If it doesn't work out, it's their local development database, so they can, wipe it, erase that change set before they've committed it, or do a rollback, or, kind of whatever they need to do to, just sort of iterate on that change set until it's right. But they're starting on that kind of from the beginning in their database and kind of going from there. If you go the route of, making the changes, kind of directly to your database and then in your development environment, and then trying to, sort of capture that into the database change log, you're still getting that into your change log. And so, it's going to still be applied to, QA and staging and production, but it's different the way you're doing it in development. And that fact that you're doing it differently in one of those stages is a little bit worrying. But there, like you say, there's definitely times, especially if you're starting to introduce Liquibase, especially, where people are kind of used to working a different way, or you're kind of trying to sort of bridge some gaps in there. If you have, some existing tools that you need to work with, or even, like I mentioned with the Hibernate extension, sometimes it's nicest to be doing that diff generation against, your Java code that you already made the changes in, and you're still applying it out. So there's times that it works, but my best practice, I think, is to try to be kind of pushing that authoring of that change log, kind of as early on as you can.
I really like how you call it worrying. I like the disappointed dad tone that you had there. That was good. That's good.
I try. The other thing I guess that we always try to do as well is make that creation of the change log as easy as possible as well too. So it sometimes takes a little bit of getting used to, okay, I have to add it to this XML file, I have to add it to this formatted SQL. But kind of once you get used to it, I've at least it's maybe I'm weird and whatever, but I find it just as easy to make the change in the changelog file and apply it to the database versus kind of going into the database and making the change in there and extracting it out. It to me, it feels like a faster and more efficient process as well too.
Perfect. Well, we just put in a link to our Discord channel. Is it a channel? Is it a group? I'm not a big Discord user. What are we calling it? It's not a workspace.
I think it's more like a chat where we support. Yeah, it's like a chat, like Slack.
I know what it is, but I'm just like wondering, what do they call your Discord channel, Discord group, space?
Yeah, they do have channels.
What is it? Anyway, whatever. This is where my old dad comes out. This is.
Yeah, I'm no better in that, but this is a place to get a little bit faster back and forth going if you have a quick question and you want to interact directly with us. And I often use the feature of dial a friend, like getting Spee and Nathan on there when we get out of our depth. So it's a really, and you can see other past questions as well. I'm thinking about putting a channel up there for PRs too. Cool. Not thinking, I will do it so that people want to discuss those. Come at me.
Okay. Now we had, there was a question on here about that I really didn't understand. It was about, does it include only in XML changelog? Does it? I wasn't really sure what this question was referencing. So this is a good opportunity for the person that asked this question to get on that Discord and ask it there, right? Is this where we have, is this carrot and stick time? More carrot?
Yeah, absolutely. Because once that question's answered too, in addition to us improving our documentation, people can scroll through and see that solution too. And it's a quick way to get that answer. So.
Well,
yeah.
we desperately want to answer this question. I'm having a tough time understanding how to do that. So if you could give us some more details, we would love to take care of that.
I can make a guess at what the question is.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
While they're maybe correcting it. But I think what they're probably asking is, is include only available in XML? That kind of include functionality where you can kind of break it into smaller ones. The include functionality is available in the XML and the YAML and the JSON formats, or those more structured ones. We don't have it in the formatted SQL option because what we're trying to do with that formatted SQL is be a file that you can run both in Liquibase or in the you can feed it into your into your regular SQL editor and it'll pretty much work. That's why in the formatted SQL, the delineators are SQL comments because it'll just get ignored by things besides SQL or besides Liquibase. And so, the include functionality, in my mind, didn't really work with that a lot. Then it's kind of breaking that. It's really just a SQL file. And so that's where you would kind of need a, at least kind of a base XML thing that does the include of those formatted SQL files. We are looking at sort of new and different and better ways to be able to kind of manage that. But as it is right now, you can't do includes from formatted SQL.
And if you have an idea you'd like to see,
yep, let us know.
Issues, Discord,
GitHub issues would be the best place to put
Talk
it.
Smack on Twitter, whatever.
Yep.
If you want to find me, that's the place on Twitter. You want to get a question answered, it's the other places. Okay, I thought it was.
Okay, I see. The question was, my guess was wrong. It's for schema names in the change log. It's not just XML. It'll do the same thing for YAML or JSON and actually.
Oh, the SQL Server DBO question from earlier.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So that sounds like that's what it is. So yes, it'll work for any of the formatted types. So even formatted SQL, if you use include schemas, the generated SQL that gets stored in that change log will have the schema names in them.
Okay, but then we also got a bonus answer was,
right.
How do we have include functionality in SQL? No, use the other stuff. Okay.
Yep.
Well, folks, we've got our next one is June 11th. If you want to check that out. But again, ask questions on Reddit, StackOverflow, at Liquibase on Twitter. We've got Discord. We'll obviously update this deck for the next time. And yeah, any parting thoughts, feelings? Anything you'd like to share? Anybody?
Love your
No pressure. Nothing is a good answer. It's okay. All right, folks, thank you so much for attending, and thanks for presenting, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, everybody.